Hey everybody, this is Doug, and I'm going to show you today how to create a news transition piece in Photoshop. Now you've probably already seen the end product because I'm assuming that I put it at the front of the video. But I don't honestly know how this is going to pan out, so you get to follow along and hopefully it turns out to be something decent. So in between a news broadcast, you see those little transition pieces like, there's some kind of an emergency or something and they flash up real quick, happening now. It only shows for like, a couple seconds. And actually we're going to make this like 4 seconds, which is probably longer than what they'd even need. Only about a, 2-3 second piece, if even that. So in any case, let's go ahead and get started. I've created a new document and I used the film and video document type settings, and I chose HDTV, the full 1080p resolution. And you can see now all I've done is type in some text. I've got happening now on there, and we've got it on a background. And what you want to do is make sure that we create a video timeline. We're going to tell Photoshop that we want to make this into a video. So if you don't have the timeline showing up right now, it's down here at the bottom and it's closed, that panel. Go up to Window and click on Timeline, or you can just double click on the tab and it'll pop up. So what we need to do is just click on Create Video Timeline, and there we go. So now we have our text and our background. All those layers show up over here, as you can see, and they've got some different properties that you can adjust and animate. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically make the happening fly in from the left, have the now fly in from the right, and basically we're just going to move and reposition things over time using the animation tools that Photoshop gives us. So it's a pretty quick and easy way to do things, but you can actually have some fairly nice results. So here we go. The first thing we're going to do is animate our text. So I'm going to click on the happening layer, and if you click on this little drop down arrow here, you see that we've got a few options. So I'm going to go, let's say, about 10 frames out. Yeah, we'll go 10, that's fine. And I'm going to click on this little clock beside transform. And basically that's going to say that we want to create a new keyframe at this playhead at 10 frames out. And basically what I'm saying to Photoshop is I like the positioning of happening, the word happening, at this point in time. So now I'm going to actually go backwards because I want this to fly in and I want it to end where it's at now. So I need to actually go back, and we'll go, what I'm assuming is probably about 5 frames out, and instead of clicking on the clock, I'm going to click on the little diamond, and this will create a new keyframe at that point. And I'm going to say, now Photoshop, I want you to move from this location to this location. We're going to transform the text. So now all I have to do is click and drag this to where I want it to go. I want to make sure that it constrains and it comes across evenly from the left. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and click and drag this, so that'll constrain it so that it stays perfectly aligned with where it's at. And now if you scroll the playhead back to the beginning, or you could just click this button over here and click play, what we should see is that happening is going to fly in from the left in those 5 frames. So let's go ahead and play it. There we go. And that's nice and quick. That's what we want. So we've got happening that's showing up. Now let's animate now. And we're going to go a little bit, let's see, actually I should keep happening open so I can see what I'm doing. So right after happening appears and flies in, let's go a couple frames after that, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to click on the transform clock under the now layer, and then we're going to go a few frames ahead, and this time we're kind of doing it in the actual order. Now we're going to go ahead and click on that again. So again we have 2 keyframes and they both have the same position at this point, so I need to go back to my first keyframe, and now I'm going to pull now off screen the other direction, and again I'm holding Shift down to constrain that. So now if we just drag the playhead, you'll see happening flies in, then now flies in, and they meet in the middle, and that's really all the more I need to do. Now let's go ahead and go back to the beginning. I'm just going to click this and click play and let it render out. And that's good. That's all the more we need it to do. And I don't even need this to be like 5 seconds. The timeline is set to 5 seconds here right now, but I really only need like 2 seconds because these transitions, as you see, happen really fast. So the next thing we're going to do is just add some video to this. Now I found some free stock video, and you can find free sound effects and stock video all over the place. A lot of times you have to create an account on the websites that have these, but in any case you can find a lot of free stuff. So even though happening now might apply to more of like an emergency situation or something, I'm just going to put in like a kind of some motion city movement kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and add some new media. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on any one of these layers here. I just clicked on the background layer, this little drop down arrow, and click add media. And I've got some New York City traffic. I'm going to go ahead and import that as an MP4 file. And it puts it down, actually appends it onto this background layer and makes it what they call a video group. At this point I don't even need this background, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and it moves the New York City traffic all the way up to the beginning. So now if you actually go back to the beginning and click play, what you're going to see is the traffic shot in the background, and our text is going to fly in over top of that. So we watch it happening now. Okay, and we've got our traffic going, and it's just going to go for the duration, and happening now is going to just stay there. Alright, now I actually like some of the footage in this video clip better once you get into it. So I'm just going to go to the front of that, and you'll see you get this little trim cursor, and I'm just going to drag this back. So we're actually kind of trimming this from the front, and we'll go to about there. And what it did was then, as soon as I trimmed it, it got rid of that information, and you'll see the timeline overall shortened because it moved it forward to the very beginning. And at this point, I think we're pretty much good. We're kind of set to go. Let me just scroll through some of this video. We got some people standing. Yeah, we got some traffic. I like the way the traffic starts a little faster there from starting, or from where it stopped. That's good. And let's just dress up this video a little bit. I don't mind the video the way it is now, but we're actually going to add some layer styles to it. This is one of the neat things about Photoshop now, is that you can apply layer styles and animate those over time. And we're just going to do, let's do a color overlay. And soft light, I like that with the red. I'm going to start out, let's go with like a blue color. Maybe a darker blue. Yeah, something like that. You can kind of see what we're doing there. Click OK. We got the color overlay and soft light, and it doesn't need to be 100%. Let's take it down to maybe about 70%. Yeah, I like that. And you can see how this applies. It's neat that, you know, these color effects and whatever other effects you put on there apply, and that kind of just it's kind of neat. It makes that yellow pop a little bit better, gives it a little more of a darker evening feel, and I like that. If you expand this video group, what we need to do, we've set that layer style, but now I want to change that layer style as we go. So let's go ahead and click on the clock on the style property. And again, that creates a keyframe at the very beginning, so it's telling Photoshop we like the layer style we have now. Now let's animate that over the duration of this. So let's go out to about 3 seconds, and at this point we're going to create a new keyframe. Go ahead and click on the little diamond, and that creates a new keyframe at this 3-second mark. And now we're going to go back into the effect, the color overlay, and I'm going to change this back to that red that it was in the beginning. Just about like that, and I'm going to change the opacity to 100% just to really kind of red that out. So now what we should see is a transition from blue to red, over time. So let's just move the playhead, and you can see that slowly we go from the blue color in the beginning, it's a lot more blue there, to the red color as we end. It's just kind of a neat transition. Pretty cool what you can do with this stuff. Alright, so now I'm just going to do a little cleanup here. So let's move and trim things up just because it's bugging me. I'm actually going to just move my playhead so that I have it at 4 seconds, and I'm just going to trim this video and all of my other layers, and I know you can split the playhead and do all that stuff too, but anyway, that's how we did it. And now there's a few other things you can do too. Let's say, just to dress this up a little bit more, we want a kind of a glare or a overlay, a highlight to kind of slide in over this in the background. It's hard to explain exactly what I mean, but we want it to wipe across, and it's just kind of highlight things real quick. So let's just go and add a new layer. We'll call this highlight. And we might want to add more than one of these, but I'm going to make that, and then I'm going to drag it under my text layer, and we'll just trim it down to 4 seconds as well. And I'm just going to grab the gradient tool. I'm going to switch my foreground color to white by pressing the X key. That switches between one or the other. And then I'm just going to drag, making sure that I've got the gradient, the foreground to transparent gradient selected. I'm just going to drag here and make kind of a gradient from the, I don't want radial, my bad. Go to the standard gradient over here. I'm just going to drag from the right. So there we go. I've got a gradient, and I'm going to just move that over. And what this is going to do is wipe across. So let's just make this go to overlay. Yeah. So you can see as you drag this just manually, you see it gives you kind of a light, just brightens everything up. And let's do a few other things too. Let's transform it. We'll skew it a little bit. Like that. Yeah, I like that. That's good. So this is going to wipe across. And we're just going to have this wipe across slowly. So now go down into your timeline. Click on the highlight layer, expand that, and we're going to animate the position of it. So go ahead and click on the clock. Again, that creates the keyframe at the very beginning, and I'm going to pull this off screen. Again, I'm holding shift just to make sure it stays kind of on track as it comes across. And now I'm going to go to the very end, like about the 4 second mark here, and I'm going to go ahead, and this time I'm not even going to click on the keyframe button. I'm just going to drag it, and you'll see that Photoshop is going to add a new keyframe for us because it realizes that something moved. So you can see how I'm dragging this across, and by this point I want it to be all the way off screen on the right hand side. So let's just keep dragging it, and it looks like we're pretty much done there. So you can see it added the new keyframe. Now let's go ahead and watch this from the beginning. So go ahead and click that button at the very end there, and let's go ahead and click play. Now it's going to take a minute for it to render, and you can see that that wipe is going across, and I like that. That looks kind of cool. So let's let it render and let's watch it again. There we go. Now we're watching it more in real time. It takes a couple passes through for Photoshop to render things out. And I like that, but that swoosh is kind of going a little too slow for me. But I do kind of like to have a few different layers of these things going on and happening in the background, and it just adds a little more interest. You don't want to clutter things up, but the happening now moves in really quickly, and I'd kind of like to have a few other glows that kind of go in, at a faster pace too. So let's just go over here to our highlight layer. I'm going to press Command J or Control J. And you can see, because I was at this point in the timeline, it actually butted that up at that point, and we want to move that back to the beginning. So just like that. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to trim that one as well. If my mouse will work here for me. There we go. Trim that to 4 seconds too. And we can call that highlight 2 or whatever. And at this point, the position of this on screen is kind of where we copied it from the layer beneath it. Let's make this one go faster, and so we're going to pull this off to start with, and we actually might blur this a little bit just to give it a little bit different look. Let's do a Gaussian blur, and you can see kind of what it's doing over there. Let's yeah, 10 pixels is fine. Alright, so we've got a little bit of a blur on that, and we're going to move that off screen again. I was holding shift. Go ahead and click on position, and at this point we've got, let's see, our happening comes in, and maybe right about now we want this thing to just fly across and be over and done with in, not even a second. So let's go ahead and click on the position keyframe button again, and now we're just going to drag this at this point. And you can see as this one plays, it plays off of the one that's beneath it. So at this point you have this really bright portion that almost blows it out white completely, and it's kind of cool how it does that. So I'm just going to keep dragging it, drag it until it's off screen. And what I actually need to do, if I don't adjust things right now, it's going to go faster than the one behind, but you can see what it's doing. If we click, we'll just go ahead and click play so you can kind of see how it works. So we've got one that's going fast, one that's going slow. And that actually might not be too bad of an effect. Let's watch it as it renders out here again. Yeah, I really don't mind that. It's still not playing at real time yet. It's still rendering out, but it's starting to go faster. You can see as you watch this, there's a little meter here that tells you how many frames per second you're watching this at. So right now we're at 12.71 frames per second. And if you were just following by the defaults of what we made when we created this, it's like 29 point some frames per second. So I kind of like how this is looking right now, so let's just leave it right there. Alright, now the next thing we want to do, we're just going to stop this. Sometimes it takes a second to get it to stop. And let's add an audio track. A couple. So we're going to add audio. Right click on that, or not right click, just click on this little drop down. And I have kind of a whoosh sound that I kind of like. And that's way too long, so let's zoom out. If you click on these buttons here, you can zoom the timeline out, and if we click play, you'll hear kind of a whoosh sound, and I don't know, I hope my video program is recording the audio here so that you can hear that. I don't know if it does or not, but hopefully you will have heard that. I'm going to trim this so that we get more of that whoosh sound. It's kind of a quiet thing. And we're going to trim that. We're just going to trim it to the 4-second mark, and I'll zoom back in so I can see what I'm doing a little better. So again, I hope you can hear this. I didn't think about this when I was doing it, but we're going to just adjust the volume of this. Right now, if we go back and hit play, we have the whoosh playing, but it's a little too loud. So I'm going to just back the volume down to about 50%, and then I'm going to fade it in too. So this is only a 4-second clip, but I want to fade it in kind of slowly and have it kind of in the background. So I'm going to fade it in from the beginning about 2 seconds, and we'll just leave the fade out at 0. And then we're going to go over here and let's just listen to that again. That's good. And now let's just add a little bit of music. So we're going to click on that drop down again, and now we're going to click on add new audio track, and we're going to add audio into that. And I have a news MP3, kind of a what you would call it, but it's just kind of a newsy kind of sound. And now let's just play that and see how that sounds. And that's just about what I wanted. So now let's zoom back out, and just edit this. We don't need all that stuff. And I should just trim it. Why on earth am I not just trimming this? I don't know what I'm thinking. Right there. That's the easiest way to do that. And we'll zoom back in, and I guess I didn't have it matched up just exactly right there. Scroll back over and go back to the beginning, click play. And that's perfect. That's all the more we need. Again, this is just going to be going in between pieces. So at this point, you're pretty much good to go. You can save your file, and the only thing that you have left to do is go up to Export under File and click Render Video. And it's going to ask you what you want to name it, and we'll call this Happening Now Transition. And you can basically leave all of the settings the way they are and go ahead and click Render. And basically, you let that go. Sometimes it takes a while, especially if you're using multiple video clips and doing fades and all kinds of things like that. I just wanted to show you a quick example of how you can use Photoshop to make some things that are actually pretty cool and that look fairly nice. You know, you can make fairly professional looking video clips. I did this for in college when I was working on the campus news. I made transitions for them for sports and different things that were going on around town, and they just spliced those in, you know, when we were doing the news. So anyway, kind of a quick and easy way to do nice little transitions, and it's hopefully a good little introduction to you on how you can do animation. There's so much more you can do with this, and it's kind of a cool thing that Photoshop has that a lot of people who are just starting out don't even realize that they can do. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Feel free to visit my website. I'll have links to all of the assets here and even allow you to download the PSD so that you can inspect this further. And if you have any questions, leave a comment. Hope you like this, and enjoy.